Hi, Brad. Great to see you. Thanks again for being with me today.
Hi, Pascal. Thanks for inviting me.
To start off, I'll let you tell the audience who you are and what you do, and then I'll ask you lots of questions.
Okay, sounds good. So my name's Brad Gaulin. I'm co-founder of a company called Mexit, which stands for Maximum Value Exit Planning Execution. And for me, it's my 10th startup. And ironically, what the business does is it's about growing and transforming businesses for other business owners so that it maximizes the value in their business that is saleable, that sets them up for a great exit, because 1 in 20 succeed, and to me that's a tragic number. And if we can change that number and make it so a lot more business owners who put their lives into their business can have a really positive, constructive end game, kind of the financial and personal legacy they want. That's really what we want to do. And like I said, I'm a serial entrepreneur in terms of my background. This is my 10th startup. Engineer, MBA. I've done kind of the technical, senior technical roles in terms of engineering, and then I did an MBA. Switched over to the management side and ran a number of engineering companies, oilfield service companies, did a consulting with Ernst & Young and their management consulting group. And then 1994, I started my first company. So it was an adventure.
Before I was even born. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's kind of scary because people sometimes look at my CV or my LinkedIn profile and it's like, oh my God, you've done a lot of stuff, but it's just, you can't help yourself. You just kind of, there's something that you think you can create that's going to be of value to people, and you kind of go and do it. And sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong. I've sold 3 companies. I bought a few companies. I've shut down 3 companies, so. And to me, everything is a lesson. So it's kind of gotten me where I am the last 15 years. I've actually split my time between startups and business coaching, because the work that I do with other companies, like the Mexit work, growth transformation, I look at it as coaching, because when I was Ernst & Young, I did consulting, and that's where I tell people what to do.
Yeah.
I'm the expert in strategy, and they never do it. Because if they didn't create the idea, if it wasn't their idea, they didn't create it. I've never seen one get executed. And I mean, with some of these big companies, they paid millions for strategic plans, and didn't see the results from them. So coaching to me is where you work with someone. Well, I only work with teams. I work with leadership teams and companies, and I'm brought in through the owner. But it's the transformation of that team. And that's really empowering them to function as a team. The CEO is not the captain. The CEO is not the coach of the team. The CEO is the captain of the team, on the ice, in the game, in the play, and really having somebody who's kind of external, can see everything, challenge assumptions, give everyone an equal voice, empower them to kind of be there for each other, that type of thing. It's really the coalescing of that team that is going to grow the company, and that is going to make the company actually sellable. Because if a company is still dependent on the owner, there's nothing to sell. No one's going to buy it.
Yeah. So what I like about your background and what you bring to the table, you've got the MBA, you've got the academics, you also had the Ernst & Young experience, the coaching and the consulting. But unlike a lot of other advisors, you actually sold and build your own businesses. So you have that entrenched experience. I think that, nothing really makes up for experience. And I think coaching teams is important, because if you're a busy CEO, that may not be your skill set. And it's something that needs to be taken care of. So the fact that you can relieve that and make that happen, I think that's of great value. And I agree with you. I think the numbers are really sad in terms of the amount of people who want to sell their baby. They put all their life, energy, and money into it, and then the numbers are really, really low. So a lot of business owners don't know where to start when it comes to transitioning. So what advice would you give a business owner on that process, and what do they need to know as they start to prepare to try to sell their business?
Okay. I think the first thing is to set them up with a realistic expectation of what's the life cycle for a transition. Because a lot of times, we have business owners approach us and they say, I want to sell my business in 3 months. And I look at them and it's like, oh my God, I really can't help you. The best thing I can do is I'll introduce you a business broker, but he may just turn you down because in 15 minutes I can find out how prepared you are. And unfortunately, 95% of the time, they're absolutely not prepared. So, typically think of it as kind of a 3-stage life cycle process. There's before a deal. And before a deal is when you really create all of the maximum value in your business. And there's a period as you're kind of thinking about the transition. And for most business owners, they don't want to think about that. Like a business exit is a dirty word to them.
Yeah.
Because that sounds terminal, it sounds final, it sounds like something's ending in their lives and it's been their lives. So they don't want to think about it. But I think to me, there's a period before the transition where you can start to build your best life ever in the business. Because if you can actually grow your team in the business to be able to grow and take the business to places you can't. Teams are what grow businesses, not individuals.
Right.
So if
That's a
you,
key point. I think that's a key point because I think, some business owners, not only is it their baby, but it's their identity. And if you like, sometimes I use the word retirement, and that's a dirty word too. What do you mean? This is what I want to do. I always want to be working because I have that entrepreneurial spirit. So I think
yeah,
there's a lot of psychological, emotional work that needs to happen. But I
yeah.
think that's a key point because sometimes they're so scared to let go and even on a daily basis delegate to other people. Right. And then they're working around the clock and they're really not enjoying their life because it's super stressful. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said is absolutely bang on. In my experience, I've been working in growing and transforming companies for the last 15 years. And that's really been the focus. And it's fascinating because 100% of the circumstances I've seen, owners will grow the company to a certain point. The company, it seems to be stuck here and they can't figure out why. And they've hired consultants and they've done this, they've done that, and the business won't change. And the fact is the limitation in the business, its inability to grow, is the owner.
Yeah.
We have to get them out of their own way because of this point. They cannot grow the business past their own limitations. So the only way to grow it is they've got to hand over control to the bigger leadership team who can grow it to that next level. But in fact, by giving other people control, you actually gain more control yourself because the more you try and micromanage, it disempowers other people.
And then the good talent leaves because they want autonomy.
Or they
The
go
only
start a
exception,
competitor.
yeah, the only exception I would say to that rule is I have met some very bright, ambitious tech startups. But when I
Mhm.
talk to them, like, yeah, I just launched my business 18 months ago. I want to work in it in this many years. It's got to grow to this amount. So they already have the end mind
Mm,
in mind. So they know
yeah.
what they want to do from when they start, which I think is brilliant. Um, what's your experience? Do you see that a lot in the technology space, or is that just a one-off?
No, 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 no. Actually, in tech, it's very common because most tech startups have to get external financing. And one of the things that happens is as soon as you talk to external money, one of the
Yeah,
first questions they'll ask you is, what's your exit plan?
right.
So they're getting coached already as a startup to start thinking about what is your end game. 75% of business transitions happen because of personal crisis or unsolicited offer.
Right.
And in both those situations, you're at a huge disadvantage because you're just reactionary.
Right. So what makes a company more valuable and what are buyers looking for that's going to make it attractive?
So it's interesting because valuation companies, everyone's heard of this thing called EBITDA, earnings before income tax, depreciation, amortization. So that's kind of your how profitable is your business. And multiples of EBITDA is a lot of times how, especially for private companies, how they'll be valued. But in fact, that's only looking at financial. When we look at strategic buyers, at private company sales, there's actually 5 different value creation mechanisms that actually create saleable value in business. Financial is typically only 20% of the value. This is where it gets really kind of interesting, because the other 4 values that represent 80% of the saleable value of a company are what's called human capital. Do I have great people? Do I have a leadership team? Do they function as a team? Are they capable and competent and dependable? If I've got great people in my company, that adds, and I'm very disciplined about it, that adds huge value to your company. The other capital is called structural capital. That is policies, procedures, tech stack, accounting systems, best practices, continuous improvement, human resources, hiring disciplines, having everything so that it's structured and methodical and disciplined makes the company much less vulnerable. If somebody changes, I've got role success scorecards, I've got onboarding things, I've got all this stuff that I can replace people quite efficiently and effectively. A lot of our legacy knowledge is written down and documented and in there. So all of these things reduce risk and make the company more scalable, because most buyers are buying businesses because they see untapped growth potential.
But what about the risk with human capital? So I think most people would say expect the financial number to be a higher percentage, not 20%. But what about human capital? If you have some key people in your business and they're the ones that are really, they have that secret sauce or the relationships or whatever it is that makes it really profitable, what if they find out, okay, we're being bought, I'm gonna go elsewhere?
Well, usually as you're building and scaling up, you're making some of the key people in the company even more valuable. So a smart buyer, when they're coming in and looking at it, will go, I'm okay. I know the owner is leaving. That's why they're selling. But these key people still have a career here. So quite often what we'll actually see buyers negotiate new contracts and agreements. Sometimes they'll throw equity as a sweetener in there. So sometimes the people staying in the business can get a better deal from the new buyer than they can from the past owner.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
So the other 2 capitals, there's one called market capital, and then there's brand capital, or customer capital and brand capital. So customer capital is how diverse is your client base. If you're dependent on one company for 80% of your business, it's riskier. That takes a lot of value off the table. How strong your brand and your reputation. Like, there's companies who have been paid a lot of money purely for a brand.
Nice. That's where our friend Mark Storber comes in. So you talk about how critical it is to make the company not dependent on the owner. So how do you do that?
Well, the way we do it is we basically have a very disciplined, structured process. And what we do is we engage at the start, we engage the extended leadership team. So I mean not just the owners, but I mean everyone who has a responsibility and is going to be tasked with some sort of role in growing the company needs to be at the table. If they have no involvement in the planning, they will have no commitment to the execution. So we pull the extended leadership team, and then we have them kind of redefine the vision of the company. What does this company look at the next level? And we challenge them and say, here's your opportunity. The owners brought us in because they believe there's more potential in the company, and with coaching, we think we can achieve this. So then we engage the extended team to start creating this vision, build something that really excites you, that you've created, and you can start to build your own passion to achieve that. And making them do this as a team. So, it starts with a vision, and then we get into some strategy. What do we want to be in 10 years? What do we want to be in 3 years? What do we want to be in a year? What do we want to accomplish? And so that's the first stage. That's the strategy stage. But then we get into the execution stage. It's about people and process and skills. Because if you got a strategy and you don't have the people,
Yeah,
or the
exactly.
process, or the skills to execute it,
Pointless.
it's
Yeah.
not going to happen.
Yeah.
So then we bring in things like in the first quarter, we will train them on top grading, which is kind of a best practice around hiring, so that they know, what do the right people look like? How do I define the right people? How do I hire the right people? How
So
do
is
I
there a particular process you use for hiring? Because I find that's a challenge for a lot of people. And, being in different companies, and I hear about people in the process, and some companies, one company I worked for is like 9 interviews before you get the job. And, sometimes it's you got to be in front of a whole team to present before you get the, so I've seen a lot of that. I know it might be a little off topic, but anything that you've seen that works really well in terms of a process?
Yeah, there's actually two books that are kind of our cornerstone, and they're kind of um, they're pretty much a best practice in
Okay.
most industries. So one is called Top Grading, and by Smart, and then the other one is called Who, which is kind of a
I read
variation
that one. I read that one. Yeah.
on top grading.
Yeah.
And both of them, and again, we have incorporated an accelerated corporate transformation, and it really pushes on. You have to find simplicity. And what I
Right.
love about these human resource people management frameworks is that they're brutally simple. An A player is somebody who delivers consistently on their responsibilities and lives the core values. That simple.
Right.
you know and a B player is lives the core values but does not necessarily deliver consistently. They can be coached, they can be trained, maybe they're in the wrong seat, but they're the right kind of person for your culture and your company, but maybe just in the wrong seat.
What
So
do
I
you think about diagnostic tools? Because I know some companies spend a lot of money on them, and I think once you've taken a few, it's pretty easy to answer to build a profile trying to sell from a candidate perspective.
well, I think we play a lot of games, and unfortunately, when we try and make this into if we try and make it such that you have to fit within a box, people will fairly quickly figure out what that box looks like, and they'll design themselves to fit that box. So
Okay, I'm glad that you think the same as me, because I've always thought, this is like from a corporate perspective,
yeah.
like well does it correlate with performance, checking all these boxes, or is it just a waste of money? I mean,
Well, actually, the biggest thing in the system, like the top rating process, it's simple. It's a series of kind of pre-interviews, tandem interviews, so getting
perspective.
multiple perspectives when you're interviewing, and then making sure that each person that is going to be playing with that team, and then it's really being much more emotionally intelligent on the team dynamics and how they interact. But the most valuable part that I find even the huge companies completely fail on is the reference checks,
Right.
because that's where you really find out, is someone BSing you.
But I
Because
mean, you wouldn't submit references that I would think you wouldn't submit references that are going to say, "Oh, that person's a terrible employee. I would never hire them."
we don't accept the process is we don't accept references they throw at us. We tell them the specific type of references we want,
Oh, I see.
and
So you're
if they
taking
can't
control.
provide them, then we want to know why.
Oh, okay, I get it. Okay, so that makes sense.
Because honestly, um, so often it's that reference check, and a lot of companies, won't are very coy on how they play with that. But we've got a standard set of reference questions, a standard process, and when you follow it and you're disciplined around it, it works.
Okay, well,
The
that's
whole
good.
the whole idea is we've got to go from 25% hiring A players. We need to get up to being 90% hiring A players, and it's possible. It's just discipline, and you're better to not have a hire than to have a bad hire.
Oh, I know, that's worse. And it's expensive, then you gotta get rid of them, and I know that's a total headache. So can you give us an example of how you transformed a business, just like a little case study?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, there's one we're working with right now. They're in the construction industry, and and it's been an amazing journey. They turned out to be a fantastic team. They weren't a team when we started. As a matter of fact, so we've got a company. They were when we started with them, they were about 18 million plus in annual revenue. They've been around, 30 plus years. Well respected, well run company, but very, very much run by the owner founder. He made all the decisions, and he had some family in the business, and he had tried growing them themselves. They'd have experience with kind of growing the company, and they had some rapid growth a couple times earlier on in their life, and they'd almost blown up the company.
Oh, wow.
They'd almost put out of business because when you grow, suddenly your overhead is higher, and you've got all these costs, and you discover how critical cash flow is because I'm taking all these costs, and if somebody just misses an invoice and doesn't pay me, then suddenly, I don't know if I have a need for this line with the bank, etc. So they'd had this experience. He had tried coaching and growing the team himself. Like I said, he had a couple of his family in the business, and he was just kind of, you know what, I don't think the business would survive without me, and that really kind of disappointed him, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to find an external buyer because then they'd bring in some more management strength, or he just didn't really know what his options were, didn't know where to go. So basically, we engaged with him. We start to put together a plan for him, but his biggest concern was the health and wellness of his company.
Right.
So we did not focus on his plan because typically, if you want a great exit, you need to have a plan for the owners, and you need a completely separate plan for how to transform the business.
Right. Makes sense.
And so we really just focused on the business growth transformation. So basically, we kind of coached the owner and said, okay, if you want this to happen, then here's how it has to work. You have to actually be willing to let go of things. You have to be willing to let the team do things in ways that may not be the way you do them, but they've got to be empowered. And so we kind of prepared him for it. And we also then,
So how long did that take? Did you have to call in sort of trauma psychologists or anything like that?
not really, because it's funny, we do interviews before we start the whole process with the extended leadership team. And you could see a lot of kind of cynicism and skepticism on everyone. Kind of goes, yeah, whatever.
You're smart, of course. So you interview clients before you take them on board. So if they're not coachable, you're like, I'm sorry, go talk to this person.
Well,
Of
and a
course you
lot
would
of
do that.
times we say you've got to give us 4 months, because if you don't see positive change in 4 months, then we'll fire ourselves. But the key is laying out a process, showing the discipline, showing them there's a path to get to where they want to go. Let's just walk down the path. But then we start into, like I said, the visioning and the strategy and these things. And then it was interesting because everything we do is a workshop, and all the workshops are designed to push them together, to solve problems together.
Well, I like how you keep yourself accountable and go, hey, there's a 4 month mark. So hopefully you have that momentum, people get on board fairly quickly, and you have those metrics in place. So
Yeah.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what would you say are the biggest obstacles to making a business saleable, and how do you overcome them?
I'd say the biggest obstacle is quite often the owner.
Like you mentioned before, so that's still number
Well,
one.
their
Yeah.
procrastination,
Yeah.
their inability to let go, quite often their delusions about their own business.
Right. Which would I imagine would include, because I've seen this, family run businesses. Sometimes that family runs really well. Everyone has their talent, and there's no overlap in responsibilities. But I've also seen business owners where they have their kids in the business, and you talk to them and you can just see how checked out they are mentally, emotionally. They're just along for the ride. And honestly, you just get the feeling they could care less. So in family-run businesses, how often do you see the negative side or the positive side of that?
It is so unique, every one. Like the company I was just telling you about. After the first sprint, so we do agile 90-day cycles. It's kind of a standard Rockefeller approach, that type of stuff. But we throw in a ton more resources because it's about empowering them, getting them as a team, all this kind of stuff. So we throw in training and stuff along that process. And the training, the way we approach it, it's not like a university course. It's giving them a concept and making them figure out how to make it work for themselves as a team.
Okay. Right.
So it's really, everything pushes them to depend on each other and work on each other and help each other and train them about what teams really are and what makes them work. So as we go through all this, it was interesting because the daughter of the owner, some of the perception of some of the other leadership team was that kind of, nepotism and entitlement and everything else. Well, over the last year, it is completely transformed. They have realized, that the kids in the business are a huge asset. She is absolutely the foundation of building the processes and systems, that structural capital. She's championing that, and she's fantastic. So everyone now sees where each other bring great things to the team, and they've gelled so beautifully as a team, and they're back each other. Sometimes the owner comes in and he's amazed. At first, he was everyone's going, is this going to work? Yeah. Well, three or 4 weeks ago, he announced the team. He will no longer be making decisions for the company. He said the team is making better decisions, more informed decisions than he does personally. And he now defers to his leadership team. It took a year. And it took a lot of coaching them on communications because they've got to earn that freedom from the owner to be able to do what they believe they need to do. But it's progressed so beautifully, and the kids have proven their worth. The rest of the team has proven their ability, and the company's actually grown from the 18 and change. Normally, the first year is foundational, building the base to grow on. And they've done that, but at the same time, they grew to 29 million in 1 year.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, I think it takes a lot of courage to let go as well. So,
Absolutely.
so that's commendable. So have you ever seen situations where a adult child in the business or a family member had to exit because they're not on board with the team coaching? Like, yes, that happens, and Christmas dinner is ruined forever.
Every company I've worked with, again, where it can't grow, all it takes is one person to tear a team apart. And if you want a company to succeed, the health of the team is the health of the organization. That has to be paramount above loyalty to any individual. Right. So absolutely, we've terminated people. Almost every team I've worked with, we've usually found there is one culture killer in the team. And that's all it takes is one culture killer, and they will kill any chance for growth as a team or as a business.
The bad apple. Yeah.
And a lot of times that can be a family member, especially if you get somebody in there who acts like they are entitled.
Right. Yes. Those narcissists are everywhere, right? They will kill anything. Just give them enough time.
They will, because it forces everyone else to check out.
Exactly. I've seen it too many times. So you're an exit planner. What's your exit plan? Actually,
it's funny because what our exit plan basically is, we are productizing all of the experience and IP we have in our business. So what we're doing now is we're actually packaging up all of our processes and systems and toolboxes, and we're building what we call playbooks. And we're going to license this to exit planners, business coaches, consultants who want to come in and take on this value acceleration, growth transformation function, coaching within a company. A lot of coaches and consultants out there, or even exit planners, they'll do the one-on-one, but this team coaching is really specific and kind of unique to itself, and it is the key to building entrenched value in the company. So productizing this and making it so that we'll license it to consultants and advisors. They'll have a very extensive toolbox. There's a lot of things like this you can buy out there. I'm not sure if you've heard of EOS. They've got a framework built off. They're strategy execution specialists. They build off the Rockefeller habits and other kind of standard stuff. They've got about modules. We have about 130 modules.
Okay.
Because we bring all sorts of other skill aspects that they're going to need. Because if you see that the team is struggling because they're not really good at having those crucial conversations, then we need to train them in crucial conversations.
Right.
So having all of those tools, leadership, we have a whole future leader development program and methodology, leadership of a title and these things. So bringing all of that as a tool and a resource for other coaches, we're going to have a license so we can either just kind of become much more passive within our business, or we honestly expect somebody to actually buy that IP and buy the business from us because of that.
Wow, that sounds great. It sounds like a lot of value based on a lot of experience. So do you find your experience coaching teams to have those awkward conversations that are necessary? Do you use those skills in your personal life?
I do. And it's really kind of funny because my kids, as they're growing up, I'd go away for all this training and then there's things I do in my own startups. And I'd always come home and at the dinner table, we talk about these things. And my daughter would always kind of pipe up and go, "Oh, Dad, don't tell me that business stuff. I'm not one of your business partners or your employees." And it's funny because it's just, it's kind of, it's become so ingrained. You learn it, you teach it. The best way to learn is teaching it to others, and then you kind of live it. And when I don't live it, my partners and other people remind me. But it's funny now because I look at my daughter, and she's in fourth year engineering. She did an internship building wind farms, and now I look at it, and I can see her applying every one of skills and things.
So it pays off, right? It's it's the power of a parent, because sometimes you think kids aren't listening, but you become part of their subconscious. We still have our parents' dialogue and what they told us, unfortunately, in our brains. Yeah, that's great.
And it actually made me a better parent. That's kind of where this all kind of started when you asked about the crucial conversations. I found that when I did that, there's other training, coaching for performance. Great book, great disciplines. It's one of the cornerstones we use but we've modified some of that stuff to be used for team decision making. And these simple little processes and stuff can really be transformative for being much more effective to communicate, creating a pool of shared understanding. It's not who's right or wrong. It's right. Everyone contribute, and we can all pull once we've shared all of our views, perspectives, ideas, understandings, kind of reorienting everything to use these tools. It's kind of holistic.
So it's transferable skills that you're learning. So you learn that in your business, then you can apply it outside. So that's like a huge upside, obviously. Yeah. Does it work with 5 and 6 year olds as well, or not so much?
You got to simplify a little, but like the coaching thing I found was transformative for me personally, because instead of me telling my kids what to do or letting them reverse delegate homework and stuff to me, Dad, I can't figure out how to do this. Some of these tools taught me to basically approach it in a different way. Being a leader is not about having all the answers. A lot of times being a leader is about having better questions. It's just questions that empower and draw out other people. Right. So things like that you can apply to a 3 or 4 year old. Why do you really need that extra cookie?
Because I want it. No.
Yeah. If you had that cookie tomorrow, do you think you'd be happier that you'd kind of staged out your cookies? You can.
That reminds me of the marshmallow test. And that's a great research. So just to wrap up, and thanks again for all your insight and wisdom, Brad. So a question completely unrelated to business. If you could have dinner with anyone dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. Dinner with anyone dead or alive. Actually, I think I would love to have dinner with Gandhi.
Okay.
To me, he's one of those people who figured out that if we're going to help people, we have to help everybody. And he's a person who drove massive change, societal change, and he did it in a way that was positive and life-giving. And we didn't have to go to war, we didn't have to kill each other. We could just, let's do this in a humanistic way. And yeah, he's one of the people I find quite inspiring, because I think in business, I'm a big fan of conscious capitalism, and I think business has to step up. And I think most small business owners do step up. I think we live our values in our businesses, but I think we small business people, medium-sized business people, we're still private. We can live our values, and our values, we care about our workers. We care about our customers. We care about the communities we live in. We care about the environment.
Yeah.
Business has a responsibility to do the right thing, and it's not just making a profit. It's about looking after people, and it's looking after the planet, and looking after the general prosperity of the communities we live in.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I couldn't agree with you more. And at the end of the day, we're all connected. So I think even from just a purely financial perspective, it just makes sense, if we do the right thing at the end of the day. So
yeah, yeah. And there's a whole bunch of research out of conscious capitalism, Harvard and a bunch of big Ivy League schools, that shows companies that give a shit financially outperform.
yeah, that's what I mean. Exactly. So even if you don't have that value base, if you looked at it purely on those terms, it still makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, as always, I appreciate your time and your expertise, and I look forward to seeing the new program, and we'll definitely communicate that within Elevate and elsewhere. So thanks again, Brad, and have an awesome weekend.
You too. Thanks, Pascal. Thanks for doing this. It's a lot of fun, and I watch your other videos and I really enjoy them because they're just very genuine. So
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Brad.